equality is a difficult concept for people. I have to believe you're my equal. It's all about the attitudes, the perceptions, and the mindsets of people. You know, if we can change that, and I know because we've done it, if we can change that, you can make anything happen in this country. But we are too scared to have those conversations. You know, the late Eusebius asked me one day to speak on his radio program, and I'm not big on media, you all know that know me. And I said, if I can get one thing right in this country, if everybody could just hear another South African story. Because I walk up here, you all look at me, you make assumptions. You don't know my story. No, I don't know your story, I don't know your story. You know, if we all know each other's story and stop talking about them and talking about South Africa as if it's somebody else's problem, and just all start saying, let's be honest about it and let's have the right. Corporate does not want to do that. And the first thing that corporate does when whatever excuse, but normally business, is they cut the budget for anything that's transformational. You know, they don't want to play the long game. They want to play the short game. And it's not just the corporates that are led with, to be very blunt, by white people. It's the corporates that are led by black guys. You know, they get to the top and they sit pretty and they don't care about anybody else, let alone the women that are coming up. I mean, we've got to have the right conversations, guys, and start saying it's time for us all to stand up. For the sake of our children and our grandchildren, we cannot continue to do what we're doing. We've got to start being honest. We've got to call each other out. You know, if Lebo thinks I'm wrong, he's got to say, Jackie, you're wrong, and I've got to go, sorry, what am I doing wrong? Let's talk about it. And not fire me because I said you're wrong. So for me, it's about not wanting to have the right conversations, not hearing each other's stories, and like you've said, it's not realizing it starts with me. You know, everybody says they want transformation, everybody says they want change, but not at my expense, you know. Don't make me uncomfortable, don't take something away from me. And that's with every race group and every age group that I'm talking to in corporate South Africa. I think we've put shackles on people, we've put psychological and political shackles on people. The other day I had a guy in Cape Town, a 60-year-old white male, who said to me, for the first time, after 1994, I feel like I was placed in this country and I will make a difference. That's what you want. You want every single South African to say, I will make a difference, whether they are old or young, black or white, male or female. I believe in that. I'm sorry, I don't have any other answer. You know, and I must tell you, whether we take away the Springbok or not, Siya Kolisi and them got it right. They played for each other and with each other. They didn't care about who was in the team next to me. They said, we are South Africans and we're playing for our country. We can do that at a bigger level as well. And it's not about the game plan, it's about whether they want to play the game. Stop looking at me like that. I really like that look, though.
I'm listening, yeah.
Sorry about that.
It's the first time I've seen Duma in a long time not have anything to say.
Sorry.
But thank you for that.
You.
I think we've come to the end of the session, but before we close, I think maybe share with us something for us to take away and really stew on and think about over the festive season as we go into strat sessions in our different places of employment, in our own companies, and as we also think and reflect about transformation, about advocacy, and how we can be a part of the change we want to see in this country. And I'm giving you a minute.
Yeah, you know, I really don't know where to start, but just basically, I think what Jackie was saying is correct. We're not having the right conversations. So for me, we've done all the work to show that this economy is not working. And it's just not working from every single angle you look at it, you know? And there's no excuses, you know? And you know that statistic I put at the beginning that we've only grown by 22% in 1994. The only person when I presented who's not agreed with me is the finance minister. I said, no, I don't even want to hear what you're going to say. It's I don't even want to hear your answer, you know? And so I'm just saying that, yeah, that's all I would say. Like, let's have these conversations, proper conversations. And I'm getting the feeling that we are back where we were in pre-94. Yeah, that's where we are now. I was reading a book by Rory Reardon about the Eastern Cape and the role it played in the struggle. And you read that book and you say, we can't be back where we were pre-94, where we have to decide. We have to decide what type of country we want. And then the last thing I want to say, I'm a big one on education, and 15% of the population's got tertiary qualifications and 6% degrees. Canada is 61%. South Korea is 50. I watch K-dramas. And US is 50%. So I don't believe in incremental changes at all. If you want incremental changes, quick wins, I'm the wrong person to talk to. We have to rejig that whole education system. The enrollments have to double. The enrollment's now 1.7 million, 600,000 TVET. TVET colleges are an embarrassment. We should start from scratch, shut them down, change the curriculum, everything. 1.1 million higher education. Since we started with NSFAS, enrollment has stalled for the past 5-6 years since we had this NSFAS. So I don't want a solution that's just about accountants, I want a solution that's for all South Africans, access to education. It's a human right for all South Africans. It mustn't depend on ability to pay. I believe in free tertiary education. From basic to tertiary, it's an investment in our people, and we have to expand the enrollment, a huge amount that we have in South Africa.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think the other bit of recognition, I think we'll have the conversation outside. We definitely need to recognize you for the work that you've done on the basic income grant. It's something that's massive and has really carried a lot of South Africans through the tough time of COVID, and we hope it continues. But well done on the long advocacy work.
Sorry, I just have to explain how I became converted. I was working for something.
You see why I said 1 minute?
No, just a quick one. I must just tell you, how I became an activist for this thing. We were sitting in with a colleague of mine, Isabel. So we were sitting in a meeting just when COVID started, in the presidency, and they were debating how to make a response to the crisis. And I noticed everybody is trying to make their proposal smaller. But I was looking at every other country, they were doing whatever it takes. But everybody was trying to make their proposals smaller. And I realized, no, we have to do something big to address this poverty, and we must let it rip in our society. We must, the people in Tanzania to Tembisa to whatever, it must stimulate the economies. And then the other things must happen. So for me, I'm a recent convert. I was not always a convert towards a basic income grant, but in that meeting, the penny dropped, that we have to do something here.
Thank you. Lincoln?
Can I start on a lighter note? I'm just picturing how Phoebe had to deal with Duma as, as a diplomatic spouse, where they have to go to all these dinners. And Dima will give his views in Europe, which may not be popular.
I had to go to National Israel Day. I said, I get never again.
But I want to say something that's contrary to what's maybe been said by Duma, and that's maybe why there's a democracy. Most people here in this room have got a profile picture, maybe on WhatsApp or any thingamabob. And most people don't take a profile picture before they sleep. Right? You don't take it when you wake up. You take it at the right time when you work on the thing. You work on it. Why? Because that's the image you want to portray. Right? So assume I had words with my wife before I got here, and she had paragraphs with me, right? How do I project that to you? Because you don't care about my issues. You care that I came and participated here. But when I put a post about us, I'm going to say, love lives here. Does that mean I'm a liar? Because we had a fight. But the fight is not the sum total of our relationship. Those who've got kids, we know we love our kids, but there are days. There are certain days. But we don't post that. We post bundles of joy. Why am I saying this? Is to say, this country, warts and all, has to work. And we have the responsibility to make it work. So how we project it is also important. Because if we project it is that it is dysfunctional, never works, who will invest in it? Who will stay here? Who will contribute? Because we must just give up, right? So where we must take social commentators like Duma and others who challenge us is to point out that the emperor has no clothes. Let's deal with those things. But where we've made progress, let's see that progress and grow with it. Because if we don't, it's easy for people to give up. First point I wanted to make. The second point I wanted to make is BMF, Abasa, APSIP, BBC have all worked a lot on the hardware of transformation. But not a lot has been worked on the software of transformation. Diversity, sense of belonging and inclusion. How do you make this organization, whether it's Standard Bank or Auditor General or whatever, to work with a diverse group of people, where you have to make change, where somebody might not get a job but another gets a job and whatever? How do you lead in that environment? There's no PE charter to have that conversation. There's no transformation charter. It's you leading a group of people where all of them can have a sense that I have a future here. I might be white, I might be Indian, I might be colored, I might be African, but I have a place here. That piece is missing in a lot of discussions, and I see people not getting it. That you've got to get the software, because if the company doesn't succeed, it's easy for them to get rid of you because the company is not succeeding. Then you say, no, they don't for transformation. But you were hired to make the company to grow. If the company is not growing, you're not doing justice to transformation. Because if I'm a black CEO and my company is going south, I'm not doing transformation a good thing. How do we do that? Back to the thing about what was the Freedom Charter about? What were the foundations of our constitution? There are different views on that. In South Africa, we have people who believe strongly that the non-racial character of our country is a wrong decision. The constitution is wrong. And they're entitled to that because it's a democracy. Some of them are white, some of them are black. Those of us, unashamedly, who believe in a non-racial society that is transformed, we will always stand our ground and say to those on the far sides, both black and white, and say, what's the alternative? I hear people say Rainbow Nation is nonsense and whatever. Okay, so what's the alternative? Let's kill each other. What's the alternative? Because sometimes we don't understand the pain we cause to one another. Colored people now feel they don't belong. Indian people feel don't belong. Some white people decide they leave. Or some people, if they are black and they work in the company where the CEO is from the Eastern Cape, if they're from Limpopo, there's no chance. If we're talking about true, genuine transformation, is to take diverse teams, which is inclusive of women that have to be moving up. Because sometimes I'm pro-transformation, but there is a position there, and a woman needs to get that job. I'm like, no. There are reasons now why. So I'm saying, for me, some of the fundamental principles are being lost because of self-interest. The last thing I'll say is, I go back to what my brother said there. I have absolute faith in this country. My generation, Naboduma, our generation, hasn't got it right. This new generation is getting there. the conversations I have with young people give me hope. And that's why I want to spend a lot of my time influencing younger people. Because some of the debates we've been having with Botuma have been going on for 20 years. It's the same way debates that Bo Mandela used to have, Nobo Mbeki and Robben Island. For 20 years, they're sitting there every day having different debates. I'm saying, how do we get young people who want to compete with India, with China, but also care about an inclusive society? Not either or, it's and. Because if we can only show young people only the poverty and the underdevelopment and the unemployment, then they think that the world is stunted. But on the other hand, if they only just think about the global and ignore this, our society is not going to be sustainable. So for me, inequality in this country is unsustainable. We're the most unequal country in the world. It matters to me that we have a society that works. There's more equity in this society, right? That's why I left Standard Bank to be where I am, and there's a different debate with Duma about why am I there and why. Secondly, a diverse society, whether in terms of youth, in terms of gender, in terms of disability, that society will succeed. Diverse teams that have got all of that will also succeed. And the last piece is the ability to listen to one another, which is what Jake was saying, the caring. Because if I outshout you, I'm not going to go far. All you're going to do is to keep quiet, right? But it's that ability to listen to the other person and not think that you've got all the answers. We miss that. That's why I say, when you look at social media and that debate, there are very few people who concede on social media that they lost the debate. How will you concede during the people? Right? But when we're having robust discussions, there are certain aspects of what Duma is saying that I can take and say, Duma, on that I agree, let's find a way. Right? But if Duma is going to say, Lincoln, you must just take everything I say, then it's not going to work. So for me, coming to an Abasa session has been enlightening. I listened to the previous session, and I want to leave you with this thing that says, Abasa doesn't have a right to exist. Any of these organizations. The only reality is, does this organization speak to a membership that exists and in a membership that's growing? If it's speaking to a membership that's dying, it's similar to many of our traditional churches that are dying. They're not growing. They're not attracting younger people and growing. And again, to those who are leading those organizations, remember, if you're a DJ and you're playing music and the audience is not dancing, you can't change the audience. The question is, are people listening to these messages? How do we make transformation and diversity, exciting for young people? President cannot recruit the way I used to recruit when I was in the 80s as student leader. The language has to be different, otherwise the young people are like, we don't have time. So when I speak to my children on issues of transformation and change, my language is different to the language I used when I was an activist and all of those things. So for me, I just want to say to those who are in this journey, to not give up. You can't give up because the battle is still there. If old fuddy daddies like me and Duma can still have this passion, it means there's hope. We can't give up because the journey is not complete. Yet there are many people who will not join us. Either it's because they don't see that there's a problem in the country, which is what Duma was articulating, and others have given up that the problems are too much that they cannot be solved. And I'm saying somewhere we've got to find that thing that says there's a cause, and there are people willing to engage in that cause. And for you who are here to spend your time in a session like this, tells me that there's hope. Thank you, my leader.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the transformation we need needs to be built on knowing when to admit that your generation did not get everything perfectly and there's work to be done, and not having shame around sharing what did not work. So thank you for that. Jackie,
Sure. Very quickly, I agree with the previous speakers, both Lincoln and Duma, with everything they've said. And diversity has been proven to be, I mean, if you want to have a diverse team, you have a winning team. We all know that. So why do people not like it? Because it's difficult. There's a psychological concept in unconscious bias called tribalism, which says we all like to belong to a group, but the group must share something with us. So we've got to shift. You see, this is why I do the history with people, because you've got to understand how apartheid engineered us to think a certain way. And now we have to change that thinking. So you have to change that thinking to a shared future, but you don't have a shared past. So how do you have the conversation, because you're having different conversations. My conversation and Duma's conversation, even if we both grew up in the Eastern Cape, is a different conversation. So I think you have to create a shared future. You've got to say, this is where we're going. Do you want to get onto the bus? You've got to create an understanding of why we're going there. And the people that are shouting on the, I call them the lunatic fringe, by the way, this 2% on either side, we have to sometimes just ignore them and just get on with the work in the middle here, because there is no other alternative. So for me, it's really just about creating understanding, and then all the policies and all the nice things will take care. That'll be the game plan. That'll be the rules of the game. But just get people back on the bus and say, stop talking about everything that's wrong in this country. When people tell me it's a failed state in a workshop, I lose it on every level. And I tell them, do you know what a failed state is? And then I start quoting, because it's so easy to say negative things, when there are so many positive things. So for me, it's all just about having the conversations, creating the platforms. This is not the right platform. We need small groups. You need to sit around a table and say, let's talk about these things. As much as I appreciate being here, it's the people here are probably converted already. So we need to get into organizations. We need to get people to sit around a table and have a difficult conversation. And just my last thing, where it works in organizations is where you have strong ethical leadership. Final word. Thank you.
thank you, Jackie. Tatempav, we're in the Aerotropolis, so we must get us to touchdown now.
Yeah, no, I'll be a minute, unlike my colleagues. And
to note, it's the people from the Eastern Cape.
I agree fully with them. I feel for you. You feel so isolated here. So I want to take it to our theme, embracing effective advocacy or lobbying. I think one thing that we need to do is introduce an element of integrity in our lobbying in this country. There's a lot of corruption that goes into the lobbying and advocacy. Policies that we see being published are not policies that have been influenced through a democratic process. Let me be controversial once. I will support Afro-Forum's right anytime, because what they're doing, they're enhancing democracy. They're challenging policies they don't agree with. I don't agree with them, but they challenge the policies they don't agree with openly, allowing you a space, if you so wish, to oppose them. They take them to court through our justice system. So if you want to oppose them there. I have major difficulties with the capital in this country who compromise the political system by driving this dollar, diplomacy or negotiating on policy position. It's a major issue for me. So I think, how do you do that? How do you introduce integrity in lobbying and advocacy? If you look at OECD countries, they started regulating. It's not regulated in South Africa, unfortunately. It's very unfortunate it's not. But other countries have started regulating. You have to introduce an element of transparency. We need to know, if Abasa exists, we need to know who are their beneficiaries, what do they live for, and if they have conversation with the minister, that conversation needs to be public. We need to know, and we need to know who finances them. Because once you have that level of transparency, then we'll be able, because otherwise our country is going to be captured. Because to the point that has been made by Lincoln, that self-interest has become a major issue. So if those who got bigger bags approaches a minister whose interest is nothing but his own, when he sees that bag and is told that get this policy through, he's going to make sure that policy goes through. Because there's no openness and transparency in terms of our advocacy. So I want to leave it that I think we need to lobby our government. They need to start introducing mechanism or policies about how we regulate lobbying and advocacy. It's crazy out there. There are midnight lobbyists that are actually driving our country, down the drain. Thank you.
And I think with that, we've all gotten something to take away with us at the end of this day and to really think deeply about advocacy, to think deeply about how do we become a part of the change that we want to see in this country? How do we create spaces not only for the future, but also spaces for our future selves, if we look at ourselves, to have an easier time and a more prosperous time in this country. Thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you.